anticipated his words. In low whispers he said, "Muslim, my respected guest, I know what is uppermost in your mind. If God enable me to leave this cursed town in time, I shall rush post haste to warn our master and Imam to turn back." He hung his head down and, in a tone which was hardly audible, added, as if muttering to himself, "Muslim, my duty towards you as your host demands that I should remain here to protect you and shed the last drop of my blood in your defense. But I know that you would like me to attend to the higher duty that we both owe to our master, Husayn ibn Ali. There is hardly time to be lost, and so I bid you farewell. May Almighty God protect you and your innocent sons from the fury of these treacherous fiends." Hani ibn Urwa rushed out of the mosque. He knew that he had to act quickly, if at all he was to succeed in his mission. Before leaving Kufa he had to do something for the safety of the two young sons of Muslim who had not yet reached their teens. He was quickly revolving in his mind how he could hide these innocent boys and where. He could not think of anybody known to him who could be trusted to give shelter to them. He hardly had any time at his disposal to make arrangements because his paramount obligation was to convey Muslim's message to Imam Husayn. His quick working mind decided that the children of Muslim must be warned to get out of the house where they were no longer safe and leave the rest to God. On reaching his house, Hani asked his wife to whisk the children out of the house by the back door for their safety. He asked his servant to harness his horse as quickly as he could. Hardly Muhammad and Ibrahim, the young sons of Muslim, had been put on the road to face the world and its turmoils in a strange and unfriendly city. The house of Hani was surrounded by armed troopers sent by Ubaydullah. Hani realized that the hope he had cherished to leave the town and carry the message of Muslim to Husayn was completely frustrated. He unsheathed his sword and fell upon the hirelings of Ubaydullah, with the intention of selling his life as dearly as he could. The odds against him were too heavy. He was soon overpowered and chained and marched off to the court of the governor. After Hani's departure from the mosque, Muslim reflected for a while. At first his mind was put at ease by Hani's assurance that he would carry the warning to Husayn about the happenings in Kufa. But on second thoughts he realized that there was every possibility of Hani being captured before he could leave the town. What if that happened? He had fullest confidence in Hani's sincerity, but how could he be so sure that Hani would be able to make good his escape from Kufa? Although Muslim was fully alive to the lot that would befall his innocent sons on their capture, he realized that the right course for him was to find some other person whom he could trust to carry the message to the Imam. Kneeling in prayer he muttered, "Merciful Allah, spare me for a while so that I can send the warning to my Imam." He came out of the mosque slowly. He did not know which way to turn, he only knew that the whole town had turned hostile to him. As soon as he stepped out of the mosque, he saw groups of people collected here and there and engaged in animated conversation. On seeing him coming out they scattered and walked away as if they had never known him. Muslim realized that they were, one and all, mortally afraid of the reprisals that would befall them if they stood by him. Now he saw how difficult it was for him to find a single person who could fulfill his purpose, where to look for him, where to find him. With a heavy heart Muslim was now trudging the narrow by lanes of Kufa. The sun was fast ascending, and the dark narrow lanes of Kufa becoming darker every moment. Making a hood of his gown to cover his head to avoid identification, Muslim was walking on and on, almost aimlessly ambling. The deserted, cobbled pavements were echoing his footsteps. The only other sound to be heard was of the horses' hoofs as the soldiers were patrolling the streets and searching for him in all nooks and corners. Whilst walking aimlessly he was furiously thinking how to find someone who could carry his message to Husayn. Soon darkness descended on the whole town. As curfew had been imposed by the orders of the governor, not a soul was venturing out. It became evident to Muslim that, if he walked on there was every possibility of his being arrested by the patrolmen and, if that happened, his last hope of finding a messenger would vanish. The events of the day had made him tired in body and soul. He sat on the doorstep of a house, hesitating whether to knock at the door and ask for water. Whilst he was still wavering, he heard the opening of the door against which he was leaning. An old lady stood there with a flickering candle in her hands. From her enquiring eyes he could understand that she was wondering why he was seated there. Muslim turned to her and requested a glass of water. She asked him to wait for a minute and, going into the house, returned with a tumbler of water. Muslim drank it too, the last drop, and thanked the lady profusely. He again sat down on the doorstep. The old lady looked at him for a while and then asked him, "My son, why do you not return to your house? Do you realize how your wife and children must be worrying about you by your remaining away from the house in such troubled atmosphere? Don't you have a house with wife and children?" A lump came into Muslim's throat with the recollection of his family and home. Controlling his emotions and checking the tears which were gushing from his eyes, he said, "Good lady, I have a house, but in a distant land. My wife and young daughters are at home and my sons are in Kufa, but perhaps they will wait for me forever." After a brief pause, he added, "In this unfriendly town I have no home and nobody to whom I can turn for shelter." These words of despondency moved the lady. Sympathetically she said, "From where do you come and why are you here in these troubled times?" Muslim murmured in reply, "I am from the city of the Prophet. I came on the invitation of the people of Kufa as their guest. Though thousands welcomed me on my arrival, there is now not a soul who will admit me into his house." The venerable old lady was taken aback by this reply. She raised the candle she was carrying to bring it nearer Muslim's face. With an exclamation of recognition, she bent down on her knees and said, "My God, you are Muslim, the emissary of my Imam, my beloved Hussein, who is hunted by Ubaidullah's soldiers. How did I not recognize you at the first glance when your words, your accent, your demeanor all had the stamp of people of the Prophet's house?" Sobbing bitterly and overcome by contrition, she added, "How will I face my lady Fatima on the day of reckoning when she will ask me, 'Taha, my Hussein's emissary came to you, friendless and shelterless, but you callously and relentlessly turned him out. What reply will I give to her? The least that I can do for you is to give you shelter in my house till an opportunity arises for you to make good your escape from this